Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, debt slaves, earths, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks, fake news. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. And I want to talk about these two new articles that just came out in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. And a lot of DNC insiders have now revealed that Joe Biden pretty much had severe cognizant decline since day one of taking the presidency in 2020. And this is no surprise to any of us and all of us that have paid attention the last 4 years. It was pretty evident. But the fact that this is coming out now is curious in some respects, and I'll get into that in a moment. But the reveals are pretty stunning. The fact that a lot of his staffers had to work around him and cover for him for the entire 4 years of his presidency. And that includes having basically a 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. window of 6 hours of which they could work with him, and the fact that they had to steer him away from a lot of public appearances and keep him short and work with his handicaps from the very beginning of his presidency. And one of the more startling stories that came out was the fact that when there was discussions about the Afghan withdrawal, they basically even had a hard time reaching President Biden to coordinate that, and part of the reason probably why we ended up with such a disaster. And so that brings up one of my points, of course, is the fact that for the last 4 years, somebody else has been running the government. And I've talked about that a number of times. And now we have direct evidence of the fact that somebody, whether it was low-level DNC people, his staff, his handlers, and then, of course, bigger players that we're not hearing about, were actually running things. And that's what I've talked about before as well, that the deep state has been running things for the last 4 years, and that's pretty amply displayed now. And that explains one of the things I've talked about as well, is that a lot of these policies of the last 4 years of the Biden administration, some of them just seem like little dream pet projects of this demented old man. And then we have a lot of policies that just didn't seem to be logical or pragmatic for U.S. national security. And so I think I pretty much still am fully on board with the fact that the deep state was running things, and that's why we ended up with a lot of certainly our foreign policy over the last 4 years is being run by somebody besides Biden. And to see this combination of physical and mental handicaps, and the fact that the DNC spent 4 years working around it and protecting him from the public is just outrageous. And I know there's historical examples before this, when FDR was crippled and had medical issues. They pretty much kept it from the press. And of course, this was during wartime and during World War II. And so there was a lot of reasons to do that, to keep morale up during wartime. And the fact that FDR certainly was mentally cognizant at the time. He was just physically handicapped. And there's other stories in American history like that too. Apparently, President Wilson had the same issues, and his wife had to take over a lot of his governmental duties. And we see historical examples before that as well. But this is really outrageous. And one of the biggest components of it for me is the fact that the media were complicit in this. And of course, some of the most outrageous examples is Joe Scarborough going on there 3 years into the administration and saying that Joe Biden was better than ever, and he was just a paragon of mental and physical capacity. And all of these liberal pundits are part of this. And so to me, it's twice the outrage, the fact that we have a major political party in the United States, the DNC, basically hiding the fact that we have an incompetent president. And then we have a liberal media that was entirely complicit of that. And not only that, in the worst terms, they berated um, people that even asked questions about how Biden was doing. And to look at all these examples over the last 4 years, it makes total sense now. He didn't do any press conferences. They kept things very short. He had giant uh, cue cards and notes to try and fumble through these things. And he basically was a mishmash in speaking engagements for the last 4 years. And not only that, his feebleness was revealed by somebody who already had a history of pathological lying for 50 years when he was cognizant. But the last 4 years of these outrageous stories about how he marched with Nelson Mandela and how he was part of the civil rights movement, how his uncle was eaten by cannibals, and how he was a professor in Pennsylvania, and just it goes on and on and on. You kind of feel sorry for him, but it's still pretty disturbing to know that, particularly in light of the attacks on Trump, that he could go on a unending lying binge for the last 4 years. Some of them big lies, some of them small lies, but they all look the more pathetic now. And once again, the fact that the major political party, the DNC, and the liberal media kept this from the public, the most powerful position in the world, and completely incompetent, and hid it. I mean, this is one of the most outrageous things in American history, truly, and it's the hubris of the Democrats, and then the hubris and outrageous um, narcissism and complicity by the liberal media is truly outrageous. So now we have basically one of the most tragic presidencies in U.S. history. And it already was one of the most tragic presidencies in U.S. history because, once again, we have the Democrats and the liberal media trying to paint all these huge successes of President Biden for these last 4 years. And they're all lies. Everything they said has been a lie for 4 years. And now Biden is all the more pathetic. Apparently, his approval rating right now is 36%, the lowest during his presidency. And it's pretty disheartening that it literally took 4 years for people to see the reality. A lot of people denied it right up until that pathetic, tragic debate. That was completely humiliating and never should have happened. They never should have allowed it, and it really is abuse of the elder, and all for political purposes. Just disgusting. But one of the other aspects of this story that is interesting is the fact that now we have, of course, the liberal media is crashing after the Trump election, and they're all reevaluating the positions. All these anchors of theirs should be fired, but they're right now they're just getting pay cuts, and they're all complicit in this. And there should be Trump's lawsuits against the Iowa Register and George Stephanopoulos should only be the beginning of 4 years of insane lies and covering for the Biden administration, the Democrats. But the fact that we have these articles appearing now, once again, belies the fact that everybody's trying to get on board now. And the fact that the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times are publishing this article now after 4 years of just insane editorials and hit pieces on Trump is, once again, outrageous. Everything about this is utterly outrageous. And like I say, the entire Biden presidency, particularly in these last days, is so pathetic and so tragic. It's just mind numbing. And so, on top of this complete reveal of what an incompetent Trump has been, I mean, Biden has been for the last 4 years, and this is just a tragic and pathetic end to his presidency. And then we also have this frenzy of the Biden administration or whoever's running the government now, trying to undermine every possible angle they can for the incoming Trump administration, uh, saddling him with all kinds of issues moving forward. And so the desperation, it just stinks to high heaven. So this vindictiveness and this pettiness combined with a complete incompetency and the fact that somebody else is running the government besides Biden, no wonder he took practically a third of his presidency on vacation, sleeping on beaches and taking naps. And, if he only has a 6 hour window every day for 4 years, he certainly wasn't in control of either foreign or domestic policy. And then there's these desperate moves for student debt loan forgiveness to try and salvage some shred of dignity for his presidency. And we're going to see more too, because moving forward, when the Trump administration comes into power, all the real numbers are probably going to come out. We're going to find out what a huge, colossal clusterfuck and economic travesty that we've had to live with for 4 years, in spite of, once again, the Democrats and the liberal media trying to pretend like everything's great. He's making all these historical achievements, and the economy is better than ever. So it just gives me an icky feeling. I just want to go to sleep and not wake up for a week. This nightmare, and like I say, are we going to have another month of reveals as this media, who have no honor and no dignity and no pride, now coming out and putting out pieces like this, exposing the reality. Just a sad day for America, a sad 4 years for America, and I just pray things get better moving forward. They will, because we'll actually have a president who is cognizant, who is sharp, who has some ideas, who wants transformational change, and whatever else you might think of Trump. What a breath of fresh air after the tragedy of these last 4 years. I'm a useful idiot, don't you be one too?